In the marble-floored library of the Hendricks Tower penthouse, a storm was brewing, and Corey Hendricks had no idea it was coming. He stood at his mahogany desk, silver hair perfectly groomed, charcoal suit pressed to perfection, barking orders into his phone about a contract dispute that could cost him $40 million. Behind him, his newly hired maid moved silently with her dusting cloth, the way all good help should. Invisible, obedient, forgettable. Her name was Evelyn Porter, and she'd worked in the Hendricks household for exactly 6 weeks. She knew the rules. Don't speak unless spoken to, don't look the billionaire in the eye, and never, ever touch the portrait. The massive, gilded frame dominated the east wall. A beautiful woman in an old-fashioned maid's uniform, soft brown eyes, elegant features, pale skin glowing in the painted afternoon light. According to the brass plaque beneath it, this was Clara Hendricks, Corey's late mother, the matriarch, the saint who'd raised him before dying of illness when he was 12. Evelyn had dusted around that portrait every single day. But today, something changed. Today, the afternoon sun hit the canvas at a different angle. Today, Evelyn saw something she'd never noticed before. A slight imperfection in the paint near the woman's jawline, a thin crack that revealed a darker undertone beneath the pale surface. She stepped closer, heart hammering. She pulled out the only photograph she owned, a faded, creased image she kept folded in her apron pocket. The woman in her photo wore the same uniform, had the same nose, the same curve of the lips. But her skin was brown, just like Evelyn's. Her hand trembled as she raised it, pointing at the portrait. Her voice came out louder than she intended, sharp, cracking with disbelief that shattered the silence like dropped crystal. "Sir, why is my mother in your office portrait?" Corey Hendricks froze mid-sentence. The phone slipped slightly in his grip. He turned slowly, face draining of color, and for the first time in his carefully controlled life, the billionaire had absolutely nothing to say. The silence that followed was deafening. It was the sound of a lie that had lasted 30 years finally beginning to crack. Evelyn Porter was 26 years old, and she'd spent most of her life invisible. She'd grown up in foster care in Southside Chicago after her mother disappeared when she was 3. No body, no explanation. Just a social worker's apologetic smile and a single photograph she'd managed to keep hidden through 6 different homes. The woman in that photo had warm eyes and wore a maid's uniform with a small embroidered H on the collar. On the back, in faded blue ink, someone had written, "Amelia Porter, 1995. Evelyn had spent years searching for answers. Every database, every records office, nothing. It was as if Amelia Porter had been erased from existence. So Evelyn had learned to survive by staying small. She'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through community college. She'd cleaned houses, scrubbed toilets, served coffee to people who never learned her name. She'd perfected the art of being present, but unseen. A skill that had served her well when she'd finally landed the prestigious position in the Hendricks household. The pay was extraordinary, the benefits were generous, and the rules were simple. Serve the billionaire, maintain the legacy, never ask questions. She'd kept her head down. She'd followed every rule. She'd told herself that this job was her ticket to something better, a nest egg, a future, maybe even a life where she didn't have to be invisible anymore. But now, staring at that portrait, with her mother's face, painted white, Evelyn realized she couldn't stay silent. Not anymore. Corey Hendricks was 41 years old, and his entire identity was built on a lie he didn't even know existed. He'd inherited Hendricks Global Industries at 25 when his father died, along with a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and emotionally unreachable. His mother, or the woman he believed was his mother, had died when he was 12. He'd been told she was gentle, refined, the moral center of the Hendricks legacy. The portrait in his library was his most prized possession. He'd had it restored twice, insured for $2 million. He referenced her in speeches, in interviews, in the company's mission statement. Clara Hendricks was the foundation of everything he was. His dark suits were custom-tailored. His handshake was firm. His decisions were final. He'd built walls around his emotions so high that even his executive team called him the glacier behind his back. He had a philosophy he'd learned from his father. Legacy is built on image, and image requires control. It had worked for 16 years. Hostile takeovers, billion-dollar mergers, a reputation that made competitors nervous and investors confident. Until today. Until a maid in a white apron pointed at his mother's portrait and said 8 words that made his entire world tilt on its axis. "Sir, why is my mother in your office portrait?" And in that frozen moment, Corey Hendricks felt something he hadn't experienced since childhood. The terrifying sensation of standing on ice that was about to crack beneath his feet. None of them knew yet, not Evelyn, not Corey, that the truth buried beneath that portrait would destroy everything the Hendricks empire was built on, and force them both to choose between preserving a legacy and claiming an identity. Before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible? Like you were in the room, doing the work, but nobody actually saw you? The woman you're about to meet spent her whole life that way, until the day she looked up at a billionaire's portrait and saw the one face she'd been searching for her entire life. Her mother's, painted white to hide the truth. If you believe people deserve to be seen, no matter their job, their title, or the color of their skin, do 2 things right now. Hit that subscribe button and smash that like. It takes less than 3 seconds. And it's how stories like this reach the people who need them most. Then drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it there? I love seeing how far across the world moments like this travel. Now, let's begin. The first rule Evelyn learned at the Hendricks household was simple. The portrait was untouchable. She dusted it every Tuesday and Friday, but no one spoke about it. The woman in the gilded frame was Clara Hendricks, the late matriarch, and her image was sacred. What Evelyn didn't know was that questioning it would destroy everything she thought she knew. This Tuesday started like any other. She arrived at 6:30, slipping through the service entrance. Invisible. That's what good help was supposed to be. The marble floors gleamed. The leather furniture smelled of oil that cost more than her weekly wage. Everything in Corey Hendricks's world had a place and a price. Evelyn had made peace with that. She wasn't here to judge. She was here to survive. By 8:15, she was in the library, standing before the massive portrait. 6 feet tall, gold frame. The woman gazed coon with soft eyes, wearing a maid's uniform identical to Evelyn's. Black dress, white apron, embroidered H on the collar. Strange that a billionaire's mother would be painted in servant's clothes, but strange wasn't her business. She climbed the ladder with her cloth. The morning light hit the canvas differently today, revealing a hairline crack along the woman's jaw. Where the paint had chipped, something darker showed underneath. Evelyn froze. She leaned closer. Beneath the pale skin, there was brown. Her breath caught. The nose, the cheekbones, the mouth, Her hand moved to her apron pocket, pulling out the photograph she'd carried for 23 years. Faded, creased, the only proof her mother existed. Same uniform, same features, same woman. Except the woman in her photo had brown skin, and this portrait had been painted white. "What are you doing up there?" Corey Hendricks's voice cut through everything. Evelyn nearly dropped the photograph. He stood in the doorway, silver hair perfect, navy suit sharp, coffee in hand. "I'm dusting, sir." "Then dust. Don't stare." He crossed to his desk. "I have a call in 10 minutes. Finish and leave." Evelyn should have nodded and disappeared, but her eyes kept moving between the photograph and the portrait. The crack seemed to pulse. "Sir?" "I said leave." "Why is my mother in your office portrait?" The silence was absolute. Corey's fingers froze on his keyboard. His shoulders went rigid. Then slowly, like watching ice crack, he turned toward her. She saw panic in his eyes. "Excuse me?" Evelyn held up the photograph. "This is my mother, Amelia Porter, and that's her face. Why is she on your wall?" "You're mistaken." He stood abruptly. "I'm not. That is Clara Hendricks, my mother. She died 30 years ago." His face had gone pale. "Your confusion is— Look at the crack in the paint." Evelyn's voice grew stronger. "Look at what's underneath." "I don't need to look at anything." But his eyes flickered to the portrait anyway, just for a second, long enough for her to see he was afraid. "You do, because either you've been lying or someone's been lying to you." That hit him like a blow. His hand moved to his phone. "You're fired. Leave now, or I'm calling security." "Call them." Evelyn stepped closer. "Explain why I recognized my mother. Explain why the paint was altered to make her white." "Enough!" His shout rattled the shelves. "Get out now, or I'll have you arrested." But she saw the truth. He wasn't afraid of her. He was afraid of the portrait. "I'm not leaving until you tell me why you stole my mother's face." Something broke in him. He stared at the portrait. Really stared, and his expression crumbled. Then he strode to the wall and wrenched it down. The frame was massive, but he lifted it with desperate strength. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer, just carried it out, knuckles white. She heard footsteps, a door slamming, a lock turning. Silence. Evelyn stood alone, her mother's photograph in her hand, staring at the empty space on the wall. It looked like a wound. Somewhere in this penthouse, Corey Hendricks was hiding evidence. But evidence of what? She looked at her mother's face. "I'll find out," she whispered. What she didn't know was that the portrait wasn't the only thing hidden. There was a letter, a will, and a secret that would destroy them both. But here's what I want to know. If you recognized your mother's face in a billionaire's portrait, painted white to hide who she really was, what would you do? Would you confront him the way Evelyn did, knowing you could lose your job, your safety, maybe everything? Would you stay silent and keep dusting that lie every Tuesday and Friday for a paycheck? Or would you take a photo, walk away quietly, and try to find proof on your own? Think about it. Really think about it. Because it's easy to say, "I'd speak up" when you're watching someone else's story. But when you're standing on a ladder in a billionaire's office, when he's already reaching for his phone to call security, when you have rent due and no savings, would you still point at that wall and demand answers? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what kind of person you are. Corey stood in his private study, door locked, portrait propped against the wall facing him. The crack in the paint seemed to mock him. He poured 3 fingers of scotch with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. 41 years old, 16 years running a billion-dollar empire, and a maid had just unraveled his entire existence with 8 words. He forced himself to look at the portrait. Really look. The crack near the jaw. The shadow underneath. Had it always been there? Had he been staring at a lie his whole life and never noticed? The memory hit him like a fist. He was 12 years old, standing in this same study, his father's study then. The portrait had just been hung. His father, Gregory Hendricks, stood beside him in a black suit, hand heavy on Corey's shoulder. "That's your mother, son. Clara Hendricks, most elegant woman who ever lived." His father's voice had been granite, final. "She died bringing you into this world, sacrificed everything for you. You honor her memory by being worthy of that sacrifice, by being strong, by never showing weakness." Corey had stared up at the painted face. She was beautiful. She was perfect. Don't you ever forget that. And he hadn't. For 29 years, he hadn't forgotten. The portrait became his compass, his standard, his proof that he came from something pure and refined. Even if his father had built the fortune through ruthless deals and crushed competitors, Clara was the redemption, the good in the Hendricks bloodline. But what if Clara never existed? Corey drained the scotch. No, that maid was mistaken, delusional, or running a con. People tried to exploit wealthy families all the time. Fake relatives, forged documents, sob stories designed to extract settlements. That's all this was. He pulled out his phone and dialed Marcus Vance, the best crisis attorney in Seattle. "Corey, it's 7 a.m. Marcus sounded annoyed. "I need you at my office in an hour. I'm dealing with a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that requires an NDA, a background check, and possibly a restraining order." Corey's voice steadied as he slipped back into control. "A recently hired employee is making false claims about my family. I want her discredited before this becomes a problem." "Claims about what?" "It doesn't matter. Can you handle it or not?" Marcus paused. "I'll be there at 8:30. "But Corey, if this is about 8:30. Corey hung up. Then he called his head of security. "Daniel, the maid, Evelyn Porter. I want a complete background check. Employment history, criminal record, financial status, social media, everything. And I want it by noon." "Sir, is there a security concern?" "Just do it." He ended the call and immediately dialed his PR consultant. "Jennifer, I need you to prepare a statement in case a disgruntled former employee goes to the media with fabricated stories about my family." "Former employee? Who got fired?" "No one yet. Just be ready." He made 4 more calls. Lawyers, private investigators, a media monitoring service. By the time he finished, the sun was fully up and his hands had stopped shaking. This was what he knew how to do. Control situations, manage threats, protect the legacy. But when he looked at the portrait again, the crack seemed wider. Evelyn didn't go home. She couldn't. Instead, she took the service elevator down to the building's basement level, where the maintenance staff gathered for breaks. She'd learned early that invisible people saw everything. If anyone knew the truth about that portrait, it would be the people nobody noticed. She found Rosa Martinez in the laundry room, folding linens with practiced efficiency. Rosa had worked at Hendricks Tower for 37 years, longer than anyone except the head doorman. Her hair was silver now, her hands marked with age spots, but her eyes were sharp. "Rosa, can I ask you something?" The older woman glanced up. "You're the new girl. Evelyn, right? Heard you got fired this morning." Word traveled fast. "Not officially. Not yet. Rosa, did you ever know a maid named Amelia? Amelia Porter? She would have worked here in the 90s. Rosa's hands stilled on the sheets. Her expression shifted, something between recognition and fear. "Why are you asking about her?" "Because I think she was my mother." Rosa set down the linen slowly. She looked toward the door, then back at Evelyn. "You should leave this alone." "I can't. Please. Did you know her?" The silence stretched. Then Rosa sighed, and it sounded like 30 years of holding secrets. "Everyone knew Amelia. Beautiful girl, kind, worked harder than anyone. Mr. Gregory, Corey's father, he noticed her, started requesting she work his private floors. Then she was gone." "Gone how?" "One day she was here, the next vanished. No goodbye, no forwarding address. The official story was she quit without notice, but nobody believed that. Amelia loved this job. And there were rumors." Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper. "Rumors that Mr. Gregory had gotten too close, that there'd been a scandal, and that the family made her disappear to protect their name." Evelyn's heart was racing. What kind of scandal? "The kind powerful men erase." Rosa picked up the linens again, hands moving faster now, nervous. "There was talk she'd been pregnant. But I don't know if that was true. I just know she left, and a month later, that portrait showed up. Mr. Gregory said it was his late wife, Clara. But some of us wondered." "Wondered what?" Rosa met her eyes. "Clara Hendricks died in childbirth, according to family records, but I worked here 5 years before Amelia arrived, and I never saw any photos of Clara anywhere. No wedding pictures, no family albums, nothing. Then Amelia disappeared, and suddenly there's this massive portrait of a woman who looks like, well, like Amelia, with lighter skin." Rosa didn't answer. She didn't have to. "Is there anyone else who knew her? Anyone who might have proof?" "The head groundskeeper, Thomas. He was sweet on Amelia. They used to talk in the garden during breaks. If anyone knows what really happened, it's him. But Evelyn," Rosa grabbed her wrist, "these people destroy anyone who threatens them. If you push this, you won't just lose your job. You'll lose everything. Are you sure you want that?" Evelyn thought of her mother's face in the photograph, the painted-over truth on Corey's wall. 23 years of wondering. "I'm sure." Rosa released her wrist and handed her a slip of paper. "Thomas retired 10 years ago, lives in Belltown. That's his address, but I never gave it to you. Understand?" "I understand." As Evelyn left the laundry room, she didn't know that 3 floors above her, Corey Hendricks was building a case to destroy her credibility. And she didn't know that in a locked file cabinet in his study, there was a letter his father had written before he died. A letter marked, "Burn unopened." But she was about to find out. Rosa had worked at Hendricks Tower for 37 years. 37 years of watching, of knowing, of staying silent, because that's what invisible people do to survive. But silence protects the powerful, never the powerless. Subscribe if you've ever known a truth that could destroy someone powerful, but stayed quiet because speaking up felt too dangerous. If you've ever worked somewhere and saw things you weren't supposed to see. If you've ever been told this is just how things are when you knew it was wrong. This channel tells the stories of people who finally stopped being silent, who spoke up even when it cost them everything. If you've ever wanted the courage to do the same, subscribe. Those who believe some secrets should stay buried won't. But you're not one of them, are you? The background check on Evelyn Porter arrived at noon, and it was disappointingly clean. No criminal record, no debt beyond student loans, no history of fraud or lawsuits. She'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through community college, volunteered at a food bank, had exactly 1 traffic ticket from 2019. Marcus Vance summarized it in 3 words. She's a ghost. Well, how do you mean, a ghost? Corey demanded over the phone. I mean, she's lived a clean, quiet, nearly invisible life. If this is a con, she's been planning it since birth. There's nothing here we can use against her, Corey. Nothing. Corey hung up and stared at his computer screen. The private investigator's report confirmed the same thing. Evelyn Porter was exactly who she claimed to be. A woman who'd spent her entire life searching for a mother named Amelia Porter. The report even included a social worker's note from 1998. Child remains fixated on deceased mother despite counseling. Carrie's photograph everywhere. Deceased. That's what they'd told her, that Amelia was dead. But what if she wasn't? What if his father had just made her disappear? Corey pushed back from his desk and walked to the locked cabinet where he'd hidden the portrait. He pulled it out, setting it against the wall. The crack near the jawline seemed to pulse in the afternoon light. He grabbed a letter opener from his desk and carefully scraped away a thin layer of paint near the crack. Brown skin, unmistakable. His hands started shaking again. He pulled out his phone and searched for Clara Hendricks in the family's digital archives. Birth certificate? Check. Marriage license to Gregory Hendricks? Check. Death certificate. Childbirth complications, 1984. Check. But no photos, no letters, no personal effects. Nothing that proved she'd actually lived beyond a few official documents. He tried Amelia Porter instead. Nothing in the family files, but when he searched the company's old personnel records, there she was, hired in 1982, promoted to executive floor staff in 1983, employment terminated, no reason given, in 1984, 3 months before he was born. The timeline made his stomach drop. He needed proof. Real proof. His father's personal files were stored in the study's antique desk, the same desk where Gregory had signed billion-dollar deals and apparently buried secrets. Corey had inherited it, but never bothered to go through every drawer. Why would he? His father was dead. The past was the past. Except the past was staring at him from a whitewashed portrait. He opened every drawer systematically. Files, old contracts, a box of cigars his father never smoked. Nothing unusual, but as he pulled out the bottom right drawer completely, he noticed something. The drawer was shorter than the desk's depth. There was space behind it. His pulse hammered. He reached into the cavity and felt something. A metal box, cold and dusty. He pulled it free, hands trembling. No lock, just a simple latch. Inside were 3 items: a birth certificate, a sealed letter marked "Burn Unopened," and a black and white photograph. The photograph showed a young black woman in a maid's uniform, laughing, head thrown back, hand on a garden gate. She was radiant, beautiful, and she looked exactly like Evelyn. Corey flipped it over. Written in his father's handwriting, "Amelia, 1983, the only honest thing in my life." The room tilted. He grabbed the edge of the desk to steady himself. His father's handwriting. His father's words. The only honest thing. He picked up the birth certificate with shaking hands. Not his own birth certificate. Someone else's. A girl, born July 15th, 1998. Mother, Amelia Porter. Father, unknown. Name, Evelyn Maria Porter. Evelyn, his maid. The woman he'd fired that morning. His father had known Amelia had a daughter, had known where she was. And had done nothing. The sealed letter felt like a bomb in his hands. His father had written, "Burn unopened," across the envelope in thick black ink. But Corey was already burning. His entire life, the portrait, the legacy, the story of Clara, the perfect mother, was ash. He broke the seal. The letter was dated 3 days before his father's death. The handwriting was shaky but legible. Corey, if you're reading this, I'm dead. And maybe that means you've finally learned the truth. Or maybe you burned this like I told you to. Either way, I won't be there to see your face. Clara was a fiction, a necessity. I married her on paper to satisfy the board and investors, a proper wife from a proper family. But she was cold, uninterested, and gone within a year. No love, no warmth, just appearances. Then I met Amelia, a maid, beautiful, brilliant, kind, everything Clara wasn't. We fell in love, real love, the kind that doesn't fit on balance sheets. She got pregnant. With you. I wanted to marry her. She said yes, but the board found out. Threatened to remove me if I tainted the family name with a black maid. Threatened to destroy her. Destroy you. So I made a choice. I paid her to leave. Gave her enough money to disappear. To start over. To never come back. She cried. Begged me to fight for her. I didn't. I was a coward. Then I commissioned the portrait. Her face, her uniform, her memory. But I had the artist refine it for society. Made her white. Called her Clara. Hung her on the wall so I could see her every day without anyone knowing the truth. You are Amelia's son, Corey, not Clara's. Every time you looked at that portrait, you were looking at your real mother. I told myself I was protecting you, protecting the company, but I was just protecting myself. Amelia died in 2010. Cancer. Alone. I sent flowers anonymously. That's all I gave her. Flowers. She had a daughter before she met me. Evelyn. I kept track of the girl over the years, made sure she stayed in decent foster homes, got through school. I never told her the truth. Never told you. I thought erasing Amelia was mercy. I was wrong. If you've found this, fix what I broke. Tell the truth. It will cost you everything. But living my lie cost me more. I'm sorry. Gregory. Corey read it twice. 3 times. The words didn't change. His father's confession, his mother's erasure, his entire life, a performance built on cowardice and money. He looked at the portrait again. Not Clara. Amelia. His mother, the woman his father loved and betrayed. The woman Evelyn had been searching for her whole life. And he'd fired her for pointing at the truth. The letter slipped from his hands. He sat down hard in his father's chair, and for the first time since he was 12 years old, Corey Hendricks put his head in his hands and cried, not for his father, not for Clara, who never existed, but for Amelia, who'd loved a coward, for Evelyn, who'd lost a mother to a rich man's shame, and for himself, because the man he'd built his identity around was nothing but lies in an expensive suit. Outside his study, his phone buzzed. Marcus Vance calling. The lawyers were ready to destroy Evelyn's credibility. But Corey didn't answer. Because destroying her would mean destroying the only honest thing left in the Hendricks family. The truth. Corey just discovered his entire life was a lie. The mother he worshipped never existed. The legacy he protected built on erasing the woman who actually gave birth to him. Everything he believed about himself, his family, his identity, fiction. So let me ask you this. If you found out the person who raised you, or the family story you've been told your whole life, was completely fabricated, would you want to know the truth? Even if the truth destroyed everything you thought you knew about yourself? Even if it meant losing the family you thought you had? Or would you rather live in a comfortable lie? Be honest, because Corey's standing at that crossroads right now. And so have millions of people who discovered family secrets that shattered their world. DNA tests, adoption revelations, affairs, hidden siblings, erased heritage. Would you open that door or keep it locked forever? Drop your answer below. No judgment, just truth. Evelyn was halfway to the groundskeeper's address in Belltown when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something, instinct maybe, or desperation, made her pick up. "Miss Porter, it's Corey Hendricks." His voice sounded nothing like the cold billionaire from that morning. It sounded hollow, broken. "I need you to come back, please." She stopped walking. "So you can have security throw me out?" "No. So I can show you the truth." A pause. "About your mother, about everything." 30 minutes later, Evelyn stood outside Corey's private study, heart hammering against her ribs. The door opened before she could knock. Corey looked like he'd aged a decade since morning. His silver hair was disheveled. His tie was gone. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Come in." He stepped aside. The portrait leaned against the wall. Its crack now deliberately widened, revealing unmistakable brown skin beneath the white paint. On the desk lay a photograph, a letter, and a birth certificate. Evelyn's breath caught. The photograph. Her mother, young, laughing, alive. "That's Amelia Porter." Corey's voice was raw. "Your mother, my father," wrote on the back. He flipped it over. She read the words through blurring eyes. "The only honest thing in my life." "Where did you find this?" "Hidden compartment in his desk. Along with this." He handed her the letter. His hands shook. "You should read it. All of it." Evelyn sat down without being invited and read Gregory Hendricks's confession. Every word was a knife. Her mother, pregnant with Corey. The board's threats, the money that made Amelia disappear. The portrait commissioned to preserve her face while erasing her identity. The flowers sent to her funeral, flowers. That's what her mother got. Anonymous flowers from the man who'd destroyed her life. "He tracked me?" Evelyn's voice came out strangled. "Your father knew where I was? He made sure you stayed in decent foster homes, got through school." Corey sank into his chair. He thought he was being merciful. Merciful. The word tasted like poison. "He stole my mother, painted over her, erased her. And he thought foster care was mercy?" "I know." Corey pressed his palms against his eyes. "I know. I'm not defending him. I'm trying to—" His voice broke. "I'm trying to understand how everything I believed was a lie." Evelyn looked at him, really looked, and saw something she hadn't expected: grief. The same grief she'd carried for 23 years. He'd lost his mother, too, just in a different way. The letter says your father loved her, that she was pregnant with you. Evelyn's hands tightened on the paper. That makes you your half-brother. Maybe, probably. Corey's laugh was bitter. My father wrote that Amelia had a daughter before she met me. That's you. Different fathers. But she raised you, then met him, then had me. He looked up. We're not blood siblings, but we share her. The woman in that portrait. The woman they both erased. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of stolen histories and buried truths. There's your birth certificate, too. Corey slid it across the desk. Father listed as unknown, but your mother's name is right there. Amelia Porter. Official record. She existed, Evelyn. She was real. Evelyn picked up the certificate with trembling hands. Proof. After all these years. Her mother's name in black ink. Real. Documented. Undeniable. I'm sorry. Corey's voice cracked. For this morning. For firing you. For every way my family hurt yours. I didn't know, but not knowing doesn't erase what was done. Evelyn wanted to stay angry, but the man sitting across from her wasn't the glacier who'd threatened to call security. He was someone whose entire foundation had crumbled in a single day, just like hers. What happens now? She asked. Corey opened his desk drawer and pulled out a leather folder. I had my lawyers draw this up an hour ago. He slid it across. $5 million. Full NDA. You walk away. Start over. Build whatever life you want. And this? He gestured at the portrait, the letter. The truth stays buried. Evelyn opened the folder. The check was already signed. The non-disclosure agreement was flagged with sticky notes marking where she should sign. $5 million. More money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes of scrubbing floors and staying invisible. She looked at her mother's photograph, at the portrait, at Corey's desperate, pleading face. Then she closed the folder and pushed it back across the desk. No. Corey blinked. What? No. Evelyn stood. You're offering me money to do what your father did, make my mother disappear. Again, keep her erased. Keep her a secret. Her voice was steady now, stronger than she'd ever heard it. I didn't spend 23 years searching for her just to sell her memory for a check. Evelyn, please, if this gets out, it should get out. She pointed at the portrait. That's my mother's face, her uniform, her life. She was real. She loved your father. She carried you, and she was thrown away because her skin was the wrong color. You want to bury that? Honor your father's legacy by keeping his cowardice secret? It will destroy everything. The company, my reputation, everything I've built. You didn't build it. Your father did. On lies. On my mother's erased existence. Evelyn leaned forward. I don't want your money, Mr. Hendricks. I want the truth. I want her name spoken out loud. I want that portrait restored to show her real face. I want the world to know Amelia Porter existed and mattered. That's not realistic. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. Evelyn picked up her mother's photograph. You have a choice. You can be your father. Bury the truth, pay me off, keep your empire built on shame. Or you can be different. You can tell the truth and finally honor the woman you've been staring at your whole life. Corey looked at the portrait, at the whitewashed face hiding his real mother, at the legacy of cowardice he'd inherited along with billions. If I do this, I lose everything. If you don't, you lose yourself. Evelyn moved toward the door, photograph in hand. You have 48 hours. Then I'm going to the press with everything I know. With or without you. She walked out, leaving Corey alone with his father's confession, $5 million worth of silence, and a choice that would define who he really was. Outside, Evelyn's hands shook as she tucked her mother's photograph back in her pocket. She'd just turned down more money than she'd ever dreamed of. She'd just threatened a billionaire. She'd just bet everything on truth mattering more than survival. And somewhere, she hoped, her mother was proud. The leak hit the financial news sites at 6 a.m. the next morning. Anonymous source. Calculated damage. Hendricks CEO in bizarre confrontation with Maid over family portrait. Sources report erratic behavior. Locked rooms. Emergency legal consultations. Corey's phone exploded with calls before he'd even finished reading the article. His PR team, his executive assistant, board members, investors. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Was he having a breakdown? By 8 a.m., he was sitting in the Hendricks Corporation boardroom, facing 12 people who'd made fortunes betting on his stability. The portrait incident had turned him into a liability overnight. Marcus Vance sat at the far end of the table. Not Marcus the attorney, Marcus Vance the board member, the corporate shark who'd been circling Corey's position for 3 years. He wore a charcoal suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Corey. Richard Chen, the board chairman, spoke first. His voice was clinical. We're concerned. Multiple reports of unusual behavior. Firing staff without cause. Removing historical family portraits. Consulting crisis attorneys at 7 a.m. Help us understand what's happening. Corey met their eyes one by one. These people didn't care about truth. They cared about quarterly earnings and shareholder confidence. It's a private family matter. It's being handled. Private matters that make the news aren't private. Marcus leaned forward. They're liabilities. And this company can't afford a CEO who's unstable. I'm not unstable. Really? Marcus slid a tablet across the table. Because we have testimony from your head of security that you ordered a comprehensive background check on a maid who'd worked here 6 weeks. We have records showing you contacted 4 different law firms in one morning. Your assistant reports you locked yourself in your study for 6 hours yesterday and wouldn't take calls. This is the behavior of someone in crisis. Or someone handling a crisis professionally. By hiding portraits and firing employees for looking at them? Marcus's voice sharpened. That's not professional, Corey. That's paranoid. And paranoid CEOs make catastrophic decisions. Marcus, what exactly are you suggesting? Corey's hands clenched under the table. I'm suggesting you take a leave of absence. 60 days. Let the board appoint an interim CEO while you stabilize. Get whatever help you need. Come back when you're fit to lead. The room went quiet. A leave of absence was code for, we're pushing you out. Once an interim CEO was in place, the board could vote to make it permanent. Corey would lose everything. Seconded. Another board member raised his hand. Then another. Marcus was making his move. Richard held up a hand. Let's not be hasty. Corey, you've led this company brilliantly for 16 years, but we need transparency. What's the family matter? What does it involve? Corey thought of his father's letter, Amelia's photograph, the whitewashed portrait, Evelyn's ultimatum, 48 hours, then she goes to the press. If he told the board the truth now, They'd force him to bury it. If he didn't, they'd remove him anyway. I can't discuss it yet. Can't or won't? Marcus pressed. Because from where we're sitting, this looks like fraud, like you're covering up something that affects the company's reputation. That gives us legal grounds to investigate, to audit, to dig into everything. There's no fraud. Then prove it. Open your records. Explain the maid's accusation. Show us there's nothing to hide. Marcus's smile widened. Unless there is something to hide. Corey's phone buzzed. A text from his PR director. Seattle Times called. Says they're running a story tomorrow. Hendricks family secrets. What's behind the portrait? They have a source. It's going public with or without your comment. The 48 hours Evelyn gave him had just collapsed. The press was already circling. Marcus was already weaponizing the chaos. And the board was already measuring him for a coffin. Here's what's going to happen. Richard's voice cut through the tension. You have 48 hours, Corey. By Friday at noon, you will either provide a satisfactory explanation for this situation and restore confidence in your leadership, or we will call an emergency vote. The board will decide if you remain CEO, and I'll be nominating myself for interim CEO. Marcus didn't even pretend to hide his ambition. Someone needs to steady the ship, while Corey deals with his personal issues. This is a coup. Corey's voice was ice. This is governance. Marcus stood. You're welcome to fight it. But if that portrait incident is as messy as it sounds, fighting will only make it worse. Take the leave. Settle with the maid quietly. Restore the status quo. Or lose everything publicly. The board members filed out one by one, leaving Corey alone with Richard. Is there something you need to tell me? Richard asked quietly. Off the record. As someone who's known your family 40 years. Corey looked at the older man. Richard had sat across from his father at this same table, had helped build the Hendricks fortune, had been at Gregory's funeral, had called him a titan of industry, a man of integrity. If I told you the truth, Corey said slowly, would you stand with me? Even if it destroyed my father's reputation? Richard's face hardened. Your father built this company. His legacy is this company's foundation. If you're thinking of tearing that down for some, that's what I thought. Corey stood. I'll have your explanation by Friday. He left the boardroom and called Evelyn from his car. She answered on the third ring. You said I had 48 hours. I don't. The press is running the story tomorrow. The board is threatening to remove me. Marcus Vance is positioning for a takeover. His voice was tight. If I tell the truth, I lose the company. If I don't, I lose it anyway. And Marcus gets everything my father built. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then maybe the question isn't how to keep the company. Maybe it's what kind of man you want to be when you lose it. That's easy for you to say. No, it's not. Her voice hardened. I've lost everything already. I grew up with nothing because your father chose his reputation over my mother. Now you're choosing the same thing. Legacy over truth. Power over honesty. You're becoming him. I'm trying to protect people's jobs, shareholders, employees, by burying my mother again. She cut him off. That's the choice, Corey. Her or them. You can't have both, so decide. She hung up. Corey sat in his car outside Hendricks Tower, staring at the building his father built, the empire forged on a lie, the legacy purchased with Amelia Porter's erasure. 48 hours. A hostile board. A press story going live. And one question that wouldn't leave him alone. What's an empire worth if it's built on stolen faces and buried love? He didn't have an answer yet, but he had until Friday to find one. Corey didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study surrounded by the evidence of his father's lies. The letter, the photograph, the portrait with its widening crack. Outside, the Seattle skyline glittered like a kingdom he was about to lose. His lawyer had the NDAs ready. His PR team had the cover story prepared. A disgruntled employee making false claims, already discredited, case closed. Marcus Vance had even sent a private message. Take the leave. Settle quietly. I'll make sure the board doesn't push further. We both win. All Corey had to do was sign the papers, pay Evelyn whatever it took, restore the portrait to the wall, tell the press it was a misunderstanding. By Monday, this would all be forgotten, and his empire would be intact. He poured himself scotch and stared at the portrait leaning against the wall. The woman his father had loved. The woman Corey had thought was his mother. Clara, the fiction. Amelia, the truth. His whole life, he'd made decisions based on what his father would do. How would Gregory handle this? What would protect the legacy? What would a Hendricks do? And the answer was always the same. Bury it. Pay for silence. Control the narrative. Win. But what had his father won? A portrait that was a lie. A son who worshipped a ghost. A fortune built on erasing the only woman he'd ever loved. Gregory Hendricks had died wealthy, powerful, respected, and utterly alone with his cowardice. Corey walked to the portrait and touched the crack in the paint. Beneath the white surface, Amelia's true face waited. She'd been there all along, hidden but never really gone, just like the truth. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Smart men choose survival. Martyrs choose poverty. Which are you? Corey looked at the message for a long time. Then he looked at his father's letter. Living my lie cost me more. At 3 a.m., he called Evelyn. It's late, she said, but she didn't sound like she'd been sleeping either. I need you to meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m., the Hendricks corporate garden. His voice was hoarse. There's something I need to show you. What is it? Where your mother used to spend her breaks. Where my father fell in love with her. He paused. And where I'm going to make a choice. The corporate garden was empty when Evelyn arrived, morning fog still clinging to the rose bushes and stone benches. Corey stood by a fountain, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit. He looked younger, more human. She used to sit there. He pointed to a bench beneath a cherry tree. According to the groundskeeper I tracked down last night, Thomas. He said Amelia loved this tree because it reminded her of spring, of new beginnings. Evelyn sat on the bench, running her hand over the weathered wood. Her mother had touched this, had sat here, had been real and alive and hopeful. Thomas said my father would come down here during lunch, just to talk to her, to listen to her talk about books, music, dreams. Corey's voice was quiet. He said he'd never seen my father smile until Amelia, that she made him human. Then he destroyed her. Yes. Corey sat beside her. He destroyed her to keep this. He gestured at the tower looming above them, the company, the respect, the Hendricks name. He chose all of it over her, and it poisoned everything. Evelyn said nothing. just waited. I've been him my entire life. Corey's hands clenched, cold, controlled, choosing image over truth. I built my identity around that portrait, around a version of love that never existed. And when you showed me the truth, my first instinct was to bury it, just like he did. Is that still your instinct? No. He pulled out his phone and showed her a drafted press release. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'm going to tell them everything. The portrait, Amelia. My father's lies, all of it. Evelyn read the statement, her heart pounding. It was unflinching, honest, devastating. This will destroy you, I know. The board will remove you. Marcus will take over. You'll lose everything. I know. He looked at her. But you were right. If I bury this, I become my father. And I've spent 41 years serving his ghost. I'm done. Why? Evelyn's voice cracked. Why now? You could pay me off, make this disappear. Keep your empire. Because I saw your face when you recognized her in that portrait. Corey's voice was raw. You've spent 23 years searching for proof that your mother existed, that she mattered, and my family spent 30 years erasing her. He stood facing the tower. That portrait isn't my mother. It's a gravestone, a monument to cowardice, and I won't honor it anymore. Evelyn stood beside him. You know what happens after the press conference? Marcus takes the company. Your reputation collapses. Every deal you've built falls apart. Let it fall. Corey's voice was steady now. Maybe some things should fall when they're built on stolen faces and buried love. Maybe that's the only way to build something honest. Your father's legacy. His legacy is a lie. I'd rather have integrity than an inheritance built on my mother's erasure. He turned to her. I'm going to restore the portrait. Commission an artist to undo the damage. Reveal Amelia's true face. And I'm going to hang it in the lobby of Hendricks Tower with a plaque that tells the real story. Her name, her life. What was done to her? All of it. Tears burned in Evelyn's eyes. She'd be visible. She should have always been visible. The board will fight you. They'll remove me before I can finish. Corey smiled, bitter but real. But I've already transferred ownership of the portrait to you. Legally, it's yours now. Which means after they throw me out, you can finish what I started. You can make sure everyone knows who Amelia Porter was. Evelyn stared at him. You're giving me the portrait? It's your mother. It was always yours. He handed her a legal document. And I'm establishing a foundation in her name. $500 million from my personal assets. To support women in low-wage positions who've been silenced, erased, or exploited. You'll run it, if you want. Corey, I know it doesn't fix what my father did. Nothing can. But maybe it's a start. He looked back at the cherry tree. She deserved spring. New beginnings. Your mother deserved to be remembered honestly. And I'm done letting dead men's cowardice decide what's true. Evelyn wiped her eyes. When they remove you, Marcus will bury this anyway. Maybe. But I'll have told the truth first. And you'll have proof. Documents, the portrait, the foundation. He can't erase all of it. Corey's voice was fierce now. And neither could my father. Amelia's still here, under the paint. In you. In the truth that won't stay buried. That matters more than any company. The fog was lifting. Morning light broke through the clouds, catching the cherry blossoms. "What will you do after?" Evelyn asked. "When it's all gone." Corey looked at the tower one last time. The empire built on lies he was about to burn down. "I'll figure out who I am without it. Maybe for the first time." Corey Hendricks had a choice. Keep the empire built on lies, or lose everything by telling the truth. Most people, most powerful people, choose the empire. They choose comfort. They choose silence. They choose to protect dead men's reputations over living people's dignity. Subscribe if you believe integrity matters more than inheritance. If you've ever had to choose between what's easy and what's right, and you chose right, even when it cost you. If you believe a person's character isn't measured by what they inherit, but by what they're willing to sacrifice for truth. This channel tells stories about people who made the hard choice, who burned down their own kingdoms rather than rule over lies. If you do the same, if you believe truth is worth the cost, subscribe. Those who'd choose the empire over honesty won't. And that's exactly how we know who they are. The library was packed by 8:45 a.m. Reporters crammed shoulder to shoulder, cameras aimed at the empty podium. Board members lined the back wall, Marcus Vance among them, arms crossed, face unreadable. Financial journalists whispered theories. Entertainment reporters angled for scandal. The air hummed with anticipation. Everyone knew something was about to break. At exactly 9 a.m., Corey Hendricks walked in. No suit, just dark slacks and a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked stripped down, exposed. Behind him walked Evelyn Porter, wearing a simple black dress, not her maid's uniform. She carried herself differently now. Visible, unflinching. And behind both of them, carried by two museum technicians, came the portrait. But it had been restored. The white paint carefully removed by expert hands overnight. Now the woman in the gilded frame was unmistakable. A beautiful black woman in a maid's uniform, soft eyes gazing out with quiet dignity. Amelia Porter. Finally, truthfully, herself. The cameras exploded with flashes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus's face went pale. Corey stepped to the podium. No prepared remarks on paper. Just the truth he'd been running from his whole life. "My name is Corey Hendricks. I'm the CEO of Hendricks Corporation, and I've called you here to correct a lie that's lasted 30 years. His voice was steady, clear. The woman in this portrait is not Clara Hendricks. She never was. The room erupted in murmurs. Corey raised a hand, and silence fell. Her name was Amelia Porter. She worked as a maid in my father's household in the early 80s. She was brilliant, kind, and loved. My father, Gregory Hendricks, fell in love with her. She became pregnant with his child, with me. A reporter gasped. Others started shouting questions. Corey kept talking, voice rising above the chaos. But my father's board and investors believed a black maid wasn't acceptable as the wife of a CEO. So my father made a choice. He paid Amelia to leave. He commissioned this portrait to preserve her face, but ordered the artist to alter it, to paint her white, so he could hang it on his wall and call it his late wife, Clara. He invented Clara, created records, built a fiction, and he erased the woman he claimed to love. The cameras swiveled to the portrait, capturing the truth that had been hidden beneath layers of white paint. I grew up worshipping this portrait, believing it was my mother, Clara Hendricks, who died in childbirth. I built my identity on a woman who never existed. And the woman who actually gave birth to me, Amelia, was erased, silenced, paid to disappear. Corey's voice cracked. She died in 2010 alone. My father sent flowers. Marcus Vance stepped forward. This is insane. You're destroying... I'm telling the truth. Corey cut him off. Something this family should have done 30 years ago. He gestured to Evelyn. 6 days ago, Evelyn Porter, Amelia's daughter, recognized her mother's face in this portrait. She confronted me, and my first instinct was to do what my father did. Bury it. Pay her off. Protect the legacy. Evelyn stepped forward, standing beside him. Equal. Unashamed. But Evelyn refused. She demanded the truth, and she was right. Corey looked directly at the cameras. Amelia Porter existed. She mattered. She was loved. And she was erased because powerful men valued image over integrity. That ends today. You're committing corporate suicide, Marcus hissed from the back. I'm committing to honesty. Corey turned back to the reporters. Effective immediately, I'm establishing the Amelia Porter Foundation with $500 million from my personal assets. It will support women in low-wage positions who've been exploited, silenced, or erased by the powerful. Evelyn Porter will serve as its director. The room exploded. Questions flew like bullets. Are you resigning? What does the board say? Is this fraud? Will there be lawsuits? Corey raised his hand again. The board will likely remove me. Marcus Vance will probably become CEO by Monday. I'll lose the company my father built, but I'm not losing myself anymore. And I'm not letting Amelia Porter be erased again. He stepped aside, yielding the microphone to Evelyn. She stood before the cameras, the restored portrait of her mother behind her, and spoke. My name is Evelyn Porter. I'm 26 years old. I grew up in foster care because my mother, Amelia, disappeared when I was 3. I was told she was dead. I carried her photograph for 23 years, searching for proof she existed. Her voice strengthened. 6 days ago, I found her, hidden under white paint, erased but not gone. She turned to look at the portrait, her mother's true face, finally visible after decades of concealment. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. She was beautiful. She was real. She mattered. Evelyn's voice rang through the library. And no amount of money, no corporate power, no legacy built on lies can erase that truth now. My mother was Amelia Porter. She was a maid. She fell in love. She had a child. And she deserved better than what powerful men gave her. She looked directly into the cameras. This portrait will hang in the Hendricks Tower lobby with her real name, Amelia Porter, not Clara, not a fiction, her, because she earned visibility. And I'm going to make sure she's never erased again. The library erupted in chaos, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, board members arguing. But Corey and Evelyn stood together beneath the portrait, steady in the storm. Marcus pushed through the crowd to the podium. The board will be voting this afternoon. You've just destroyed this company's reputation and stock value. You're done, Corey. I know. Corey's voice was calm. But I'm finally free. Richard Chen, the board chairman, stepped forward, face grim. Emergency session, 2 p.m. We'll vote on your removal. I'll be there. The reporters surrounded them, questions overlapping, but Evelyn only had eyes for the portrait. She reached up and touched the gilded frame, fingers trembling. Her mother's face, no longer hidden, no longer altered, gazed back at her with quiet dignity. "I found you," Evelyn whispered. "Finally." Corey stood beside her, looking at the woman who was his real mother. Not the cold fiction he'd worshipped. Not the perfect saint his father invented. Just Amelia. Flawed, real, human, loved. "She'd be proud of you," he said quietly. Evelyn wiped her eyes. "Maybe she'd be proud of both of us." Outside, the stock market reacted instantly. Hendricks Corporation shares plummeting. Inside, the board prepared for Corey's execution. But in that moment, standing beneath Amelia Porter's restored face, two people who'd lost their mothers to the same man's cowardice finally found something more valuable than empire: truth, dignity, and peace. Corey just stood in front of cameras and told the world his entire legacy was a lie. He confessed his father erased a black woman he loved. He revealed the portrait everyone worshipped was whitewashed. He exposed family secrets that will destroy his reputation, cost him his company, and turn his name into a scandal. And he did it, knowing exactly what it would cost him. Now here's my question for you. Do you think he should have done it? Because part of you is probably thinking, yes, absolutely, Amelia deserved to be acknowledged. But another part might be thinking, what's the point? She's been dead 15 years. This confession won't bring her back. It'll just destroy everything his father built. So which is it? Was this justice, or was it just guilt? Did Corey honor his mother's memory, or did he blow up his entire life to make himself feel better about sins he didn't even commit? Real talk. If you were Corey, if you discovered your whole life was built on erasing someone, would you burn it all down to tell the truth? Would you sacrifice your career, your reputation, everything you've built, just to restore one person's name? Or would you find another way? Honor her privately. Use your wealth and power to help people quietly without destroying yourself publicly. There's no easy answer. And that's exactly why I want to hear yours. Comment below. Would you have done what Corey did? Or would you have chosen differently? Because this isn't just about a billionaire and a portrait anymore. It's about what you believe justice actually requires, and whether truth is worth the price. The board vote was unanimous, 13-0. Corey Hendricks was removed as CEO of Hendricks Corporation by 2:15 p.m., less than 6 hours after his press conference. Marcus Vance was appointed interim CEO by 2:30. The stock had already dropped 23%. Investors were threatening lawsuits. 3 major contracts were under review. By evening, every major news outlet was running the story. Billionaire CEO reveals decades-old family scandal. Portrait of lies, how one man erased the woman he loved. Hendricks' empire built on racial erasure. Corey's phone hadn't stopped ringing. Former allies offering condolences that felt like obituaries. Lawyers warning about shareholder suits. A few, very few, colleagues saying they respected what he'd done, even if they thought he was insane. He ignored most of them. Instead, he sat in his now former office, boxing up 16 years of his life. Photos, awards, the brass nameplate from his desk. All of it felt like artifacts from someone else's existence. Evelyn knocked on the open door. "They're moving fast. Marcus already has his things in the executive suite." "Of course he does." Corey taped another box shut. "He's been waiting for this moment since I was appointed." "Any regrets?" He looked at her. Really looked. She'd changed in 6 days. Stood taller. Spoke louder. owned space instead of apologizing for occupying it. No, you? Not one. She held up her phone. The Foundation's website went live an hour ago. We've already had 300 applications from women asking for help, support, legal assistance against employers who silenced them. Her voice wavered. My mother's name is helping people. That's what she would have wanted. Evelyn sat on the edge of his desk. The Historical Society called. They want to interview us. Document Amelia's real story for the record. Make sure it's preserved accurately. Good. Let's do it. Corey added another item to a box. I've been going through my father's files. There's more than just that letter. He kept journals, records of payments, even old photos of Amelia he never destroyed, just locked away. He pulled out a leather-bound journal. He wrote about her for years after she left, how much he missed her, how he regretted everything, but he never tried to make it right. He chose comfort over courage. Every single day. Corey opened the journal to a random page and read aloud. Saw Amelia's daughter today. She's 12. Looks exactly like her mother. I sent an anonymous scholarship to her school. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But I'm too much of a coward to do more. He closed the book. He watched you grow up from a distance, knew exactly who you were, and did nothing. Evelyn's jaw tightened. He could have changed everything, could have acknowledged me, acknowledged her. Instead, he sent money and called it mercy. I'm not making that mistake. Corey handed her a folder. These are all the records I found. Photos, letters, journal entries, payment receipts. Everything that proves your mother existed and mattered. It's yours, all of it. Evelyn opened the folder with trembling hands, photographs of her mother, young, vibrant, laughing in the garden, letters in Amelia's handwriting, proof, evidence, history. There's something else. Corey pulled out a final document. I found her grave. She's buried in Evergreen Cemetery under her real name. My father knew where. He visited once, according to his journal. Never went back. He paused. I thought you'd want to know. Tears spilled down Evelyn's cheeks. Thank you. We'll go together. Tomorrow, if you want. She nodded, unable to speak. A security guard appeared in the doorway. Mr. Hendricks, you need to vacate by 6 p.m. Mr. Vance's orders. Understood. Corey picked up his last box. I'm almost done anyway. The guard left. Evelyn helped him carry boxes to his car, the tower looming above them, no longer his kingdom, just a building. What will you do now? She asked. The Foundation, if you'll have me. Someone needs to help you sort through 300 applications. He smiled, genuine, lighter than she'd ever seen. And I'm going to commission that new portrait, a proper one, not hidden, not altered. Just Amelia, as she really was. Who will paint it? I found an artist, black woman, specializes in historical restoration and truth-telling through portraiture. Her name is Simone Grant. She said she'd be honored to paint Amelia's true face. Corey opened his car trunk, loading boxes. The portrait will hang in the Foundation's headquarters, where people seeking help will see her, know her name, be inspired by her. She'll be visible. Finally. 2 weeks later, Evelyn and Corey stood in Simone Grant's studio, watching the artist work. The canvas was 4 feet tall, positioned in afternoon light. Amelia Porter emerged from brush strokes, not the whitewashed version from Corey's library, but the woman from the old photographs. Brown skin, warm eyes, genuine smile. The maid's uniform was still there, but now it wasn't a symbol of erasure. It was a testament to dignity, to labor, to a life lived honestly. "She's beautiful," Evelyn whispered. Simone stepped back from the canvas. "She deserves to be seen as she was. No alterations, no compromises, just truth." Corey studied the portrait, seeing his mother clearly for the first time. Not the fantasy his father created, not the saint he'd worshipped, just a woman who'd loved and been loved, who'd been destroyed by cowardice and greed. "When it's finished, we'll hang it in the foundation lobby," he said, "with a plaque. Her full story. What was done to her, what she deserved. All of it." "And my father's part in it?" Evelyn asked. "Yes, the truth includes the ugly parts, the painful parts. That's the only way to honor her." Corey looked at Evelyn. "Your mother didn't get to tell her own story, but we can tell it for hers." Honestly, Evelyn reached out and touched the wet paint, just her fingertip, leaving the smallest mark on the canvas edge. "She was here. She mattered. She's remembered." Simone smiled. "And she always will be now." Outside the studio, the world continued. Marcus ran Hendricks Corporation with ruthless efficiency. The stock recovered slowly. Business moved on. But inside that studio, inside the Foundation's growing offices, inside the Historical Society's archives, Amelia Porter's truth was being preserved, protected, and shared, not erased, never again erased. Corey had lost an empire, but he'd found something his father never had: integrity. And standing beside Evelyn, watching Amelia's true face emerge on canvas, he realized he'd gained something else, too. A family, built not on lies and wealth, but on truth and courage. The kind that lasts. 3 months after the press conference, Evelyn stood at her mother's grave for the first time. The headstone was simple granite, weathered by 15 years of Seattle rain. Amelia Marie Porter, 1960–2010, beloved mother. No mention of the Hendricks family, no acknowledgement of what she'd endured, just her name and the bare minimum of truth. Corey knelt beside the grave and placed fresh flowers, cherry blossoms, like the tree in the corporate garden. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for what my father did, for what I almost did, for every year you spent erased." Evelyn touched the cold stone. "I used to imagine what I'd say if I found her grave. I had speeches planned, accusations, questions." She wiped her eyes. "But now I just want her to know I didn't forget, that I kept searching, that she mattered to someone. She mattered to my father, too. He was just too weak to let it show. Weakness that cost her everything." Evelyn stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "But we're not weak, and we're making sure her name does what his never did. Helps people instead of crushing them." They drove to the Foundation's new headquarters in silence. The building wasn't a tower, wasn't marble and glass, just a renovated brick warehouse in Georgetown with bright windows and accessible entrances. Above the door, bronze letters read, "The Amelia Porter Foundation." Inside, the restored portrait hung in the main lobby. Amelia's true face, captured in oil and honesty, gazed down at everyone who entered seeking help. Beneath it, a plaque told her story without euphemism or sanitization. The love affair, the pregnancy, the erasure, the whitewashed portrait, all of it. Visitors often stopped to read it. Some cried, some took photos. Many left notes. "Thank you for telling the truth." My grandmother's story was erased too. This gives me hope. Evelyn walked through the Foundation's offices, past caseworkers helping women navigate legal battles against exploitative employers, past financial advisors helping domestic workers build savings, past counselors providing support for those who'd been silenced and erased, like Amelia. In 3 months, they'd helped 217 women, funded lawsuits, provided emergency housing, offered scholarships, gave voice to the invisible. Corey met her in the conference room, tablet in hand. The board approved 5 new positions. We're expanding to Portland and San Francisco by next quarter. He looked different now. No designer suits, just rolled-up sleeves and honest exhaustion. He'd traded his penthouse for a modest condo, traded power lunches for foundation work, traded his father's legacy for something real. We need more funding, Evelyn said, reviewing applications on her laptop. Demand is 3 times what we projected. I'll sell the vacation property in Aspen. That's another $20 million. Corey said it without hesitation. The man who'd built his identity on wealth now gave it away like shedding dead skin. You're sure? I'm sure. He sat across from her. Evelyn, there's something I want to discuss. Officially. He slid a document across the table. The foundation needs a permanent director, someone who understands its mission, who has personal stake in its success, who won't let it become another vanity project for guilty rich people. Evelyn opened the document. Contract, salary, benefits, title, Executive Director, Amelia Porter Foundation. You want me to run it? I want us to run it, together. But you'd have final authority, your mother's name, your vision. I'd be support staff, fundraising, operations, whatever you need. Corey's voice was steady. I know you have every reason not to trust a Hendricks, but I'm asking anyway. Evelyn studied the contract. 6 months ago, she was invisible, a maid dusting portraits of lies. Now, she was being offered the chance to honor her mother's memory by helping women like her. Women the world ignored. Why me? Because you didn't take the money, didn't stay quiet, didn't let them erase your mother again. Corey met her eyes. And because somewhere in these 3 months, you stopped being the woman I fired and became the family I never had. Evelyn's throat tightened. Family. She'd spent 23 years without one, without roots, without belonging. And now this man, whose father had destroyed her mother, was offering something she'd thought impossible. Connection. Purpose. Home. I accept. She signed the contract. But we do this my way. No corporate games, no PR spin. Just honest work, helping real people. Agreed. Corey extended his hand. She shook it. Not employer and employee, not billionaire and maid, just 2 people building something good from the ruins of something broken. They walked back to the lobby where Amelia's portrait hung. Visitors milled around, reading her story, leaving flowers at the base of the frame. She would have loved this, Evelyn said softly. Knowing her name helped people. She would have been proud of you. Corey stood beside her. You gave her back her voice, her face, her truth. That's more than most people ever get. We gave it back, together. A young woman approached them, mid-20s, nervous, carrying a folder. Excuse me, are you Evelyn Porter? I am. I saw your interview, about your mother, about being erased. The woman's voice shook. I'm a housekeeper. My employer assaulted me. When I reported it, they fired me and threatened deportation if I talked. I have no money, no lawyer. Nothing. Tears spilled. But I saw Amelia's portrait, read her story, and I thought, maybe someone would finally listen. Evelyn took the woman's folder gently. "We're listening. Come with me. We'll help." As she led the woman to a caseworker's office, Corey watched. This was legacy. Not buildings, not wealth, not portraits of lies. Just one person helping another because someone finally told the truth. His phone buzzed. Marcus Vance calling. He declined it. The company, his former kingdom, didn't need him anymore. But this place did. These women did. Amelia's legacy did. That evening, after the last visitor left, Evelyn and Corey stood alone in the lobby beneath the portrait. Amelia gazed down at them, no longer hidden, no longer altered, no longer erased. "Do you ever regret it?" Evelyn asked. "Losing everything?" Corey looked around the foundation, at the walls covered with thank-you notes from women they'd helped, at the portrait of his real mother, at Evelyn beside him. "I didn't lose everything. I lost an empire built on lies. But I found something real." He smiled. "I found family. The kind you choose. The kind that costs everything and gives back more." Evelyn nodded. "My mother used to say, at least I imagine she did, that the people who matter don't always share your blood. They share your truth." She was right. Outside, the Seattle skyline glittered with towers built by men like Gregory Hendricks, empires of steel and secrecy. But inside this modest brick building, something different was being built. Something honest. A legacy not of power, but of justice. Not of erasure, but of visibility. Not of silence, but of voices finally heard. Evelyn locked the door behind them. Tomorrow, more women would arrive seeking help. More stories would be told. More invisible people would be seen. And Amelia Porter's face, her true, unaltered, beautiful face, would be there to greet them. A reminder that truth survives, that love endures, that even the most powerful lies eventually crack under the weight of one determined voice saying, "That's my mother, and you will not erase her again." Corey and Evelyn walked into the night, no longer billionaire and maid, no longer strangers divided by class and history. Just family, building something their parents never could, something real. Amelia Porter was a maid, just a maid. That's what powerful people said. She dusted furniture. She served coffee. She loved a man who was too much of a coward to love her back. And when she became inconvenient, when her existence threatened the right image, they erased her, painted over her, told the world she never mattered. But her daughter refused to let her stay erased. Subscribe if you believe no one deserves to be invisible. Not the maid, not the janitor, not the housekeeper, not the nanny, not your mother, not your grandmother, not the woman who cleaned the floors you walked on or served the food you ate. Subscribe if you've ever loved someone the world looked right through. Someone who worked hard, loved deeply, and died without anyone knowing their name. Someone whose story deserves to be told, even though they never had money or power or a portrait on a billionaire's wall. This channel exists for them, for Amelia, for every woman who was told she didn't matter, for every person who was painted over, erased, silenced, and buried by people who thought power meant they could rewrite truth. Subscribe if you believe every story matters, every name, every face, every life. Those who think some people are disposable won't subscribe. Those who think maids and janitors and housekeepers are just the help won't subscribe. Those who believe power gives you the right to erase people won't subscribe. And honestly, we don't want them here. We only want people who understand that a person's worth has nothing to do with their job title or their bank account or the color of their skin. People who believe truth is worth fighting for, even when lies are easier. People who'd stand up for someone invisible, even when staying silent is safer. If that's you, subscribe. Because Amelia's story is over. But there are thousands more like hers. Thousands of portraits with secrets underneath. Thousands of women whose names were stolen. Thousands of truths that powerful men tried to bury. And we're going to tell every single one. Will you be here when we do?
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.